Hello, I'm Professor Richard Wilding from Cranfield School of Management in the United Kingdom. I'm Professor of Supply Chain Strategy there. And what I want to talk to you about is really creating a resilient supply chain. The first thing you really need to consider is that you need to have an effective supply chain strategy. And this is really important. The supply chain strategy is really all about how you deliver value to your customers. You need clarity and understanding of that particular issue. And when you understand how you deliver value, there's really four key elements that you need to consider. The supply chain process design, the supply chain infrastructure and equipment you're going to use, and also you're going to have to think about the information systems, but really importantly, the organization. That's the people involved within the supply chain so that you can help deliver that value to your customers. The next thing that you need to think through to create that resilient supply chain is you need to think about product design for supply chain management. Product design is really important because at this stage, a lot of the risk is built into a product. So think about the materials you use and where you're sourcing them from. Think about the extended supply chain. If you're using, for example, minerals that are sourced from some areas where potentially conflict minerals could be brought into your supply chain, you need to really study that supply chain with some, with some real understanding so that you can make sure that you're protecting your business from any risks associated with that. The next key areas you need to think about, and this is really foundational as well, is collaboration. We often say that supply chain management is about the management of relationships. It's about who you work with. Understand all the relationships you have and put in effective ways of managing them. Organizations that really manage relationships well, both upstream with their suppliers and also downstream with their customers, are immediately more resilient. Think through as well the whole issue of agility within your supply chain structure. Agility and flexibility is key for dealing with disruptions within the supply chain. So think through, do you have flexibility? Are you able to respond quickly as you're moving forward? Design supply chains which have flexibility built into them. Another key area is then a supply chain risk management culture. I often say that culture is what people do in the absence of instruction when they're under a bit of pressure. So how does your business respond when it's under a bit of pressure and nobody's telling it what to do? But within the supply chain risk management culture, you need people to ask the question immediately. If they change, say, a sourcing location from China to India, how will that change the risk profile of the supply chain? If you actually purchase a different type of material, how will that change the risk profile of the supply chain? That needs to be embedded in everybody as they're making decisions within the organization, be it manufacturing, your procurement teams, even your finance teams. The requests that they will have on the various organizations may have an impact on the way that the risk profile of the supply chain is changed. Think through then the final two things which are required, and that's transparency and also continuous monitoring and intelligence. Transparency is key. You need to invest in transparency, put windows into your supply chain structures. When you have transparency within the supply chain, it actually enables people to trust what's happening. When you think about continuous monitoring and intelligence, the critical thing here is that you need to monitor the total supply chain structure. Of course, this comes from managing relationships, but now it might even be by monitoring social media feeds, monitoring, for example, the weather service feeds, or even the US Geological Survey. If a disruption or an earthquake happens, you might be able to then say which suppliers are close to where that has happened, and therefore start planning accordingly. One thing you always need to consider is supply chain design and engineering. This becomes critical in encompassing all these things to ensure that supply chains are far more resilient.